we'll hold off questions at this moment. We're not going to go far from Jim because Jim is the first speaker. He's going to lead the merit analysis discussion in greenhouse crops. So Jim, back to you again.
Thank you very much, Jerry. So the way we're going to be doing this is the discussion we're going to have will be specific to the greenhouse grown crops. And fortunately, we have only 3 to review. So we will be able to review these, I hope, relatively quickly. So there will be a brief presentation shown for each of the 3 merit analyses that were received for greenhouse grown crop pest priorities. And we will have a discussion surrounding the outcome of those merit analyses, keeping in mind that once those presentations are complete, we will show on the screen the dual process that they underwent. So you will see the original scores that these crop pest priorities received during the quantitative analysis, which I just briefly explained, plus where they ranked in terms of the merit analysis score. So I guess we will turn first to the presentations from each of the merit analysis leaders so that we have a sense of what each of these projects entail.
The merit analysis for tomato and the control of the pest tuta absoluta includes both conventional and biological-based solutions. Within the proposed solutions, with highest priority, we have 1. A synergistic system combining an attractant for mass trapping, 2. A microbial-based biopesticide, and 3. A reduced risk pesticide to complete systems approach. It is important to highlight that pest control is needed across all 3 production systems. This is temperate, tropical, and greenhouse. The manufacturers that provided information on the selected products say that they are effective under these systems. None of the solutions require registry studies. Most of them are exempt from these or already have enough studies carried out. Nevertheless, the Global Minor Use Foundation could support local efficacy data generation when local efficacy test demonstration is necessary to register and commercialize the technologies. In addition to assigning the score, the team classified the solutions received as high, medium, and low, considering criteria such as the efficacy of the substance and the replacement of the old technology.
Okay, thank you. Gracias, Veronica.
Hello, my name is Iris Bitterlich. I'm here to provide a merit analysis summary for the Global Minor Use Potential Project Greenhouse Tomatoes Russet Mites. I would like to emphasize that tomato russet mites are a very tiny mite species that's not seen until it reaches infestation levels. Currently, there are no biological control agents and few chemistries for use commercially in greenhouse tomatoes in the US or Canada. With greenhouse tomatoes, there are many types of biological control agents used at very high levels, and these are very expensive. So any solution that we're seeking for tomato russet mites, it's best if they are soft on the biological control agents. Still, any solutions are welcome for this troublesome pest. Globally, there were 12 countries worldwide that identified this as a top priority pest. 9 European countries, Australia, Canada, and the US. Because Karen and myself are from Canada and the US, the options we found are from these jurisdictions because we're most familiar with them, but we welcome any options outside of Canada and the US that could be expanded to include the US and Canadian markets. Because of a need to find products soft on biological control agents, our first choice would be the no mite that is currently registered in India, which is a beneficial fungus. But we welcome all solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris.
Good day, everyone. I wanted to mention very quickly that environmental hort crops typically encompass ornamental crops that are grown in glass houses as well as in outdoor environments. Today we're focused on western flower thrips. To begin, western flower thrips have a very wide host range that enable their very easy spread from ornamentals onto a number of other commodities, including edible crops. Thus, their control prevents much wider and more devastating crop outbreaks and reduces the use of other less targeted pest management tools. A number of the existing registrations presently used internationally provide unsatisfactory control, and some farming communities continue to rely on organophosphates, carbamates, as well as a number of other more dated chemistries, and have so for decades. And ultimately, these hold back wider adoption of biological pest control approaches. Western flower thrips also act as vectors for virus spread, again contributing to issues outside of ornamental production. Finally, I'd like to remind the group that western flower thrips were very nearly selected as an A priority in the 2017 Global Minor Use Priority Selection process, but ultimately were relegated to a B priority at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so I think the next step is that we'll have a slide. Yeah, this is the slide we're looking for here, which summarizes these three merit analyses. And then just as a point of interest, and in the notes, we should capture that I went through the original database rankings so that for the Western flower thrips on potted plants, it originally ranked 29th in the database. However, when you removed all of the non-greenhouse grown crops from the original database, it ranked 16th. So it just fell just outside of the top 15 in the normal process. But because we received only a few greenhouse grown crop priorities, a decision was made to include the next 15. And so based on the crops that were grown and what they received in terms of rank, this one received rank 16, okay, is the original vote ranking if you remove the non-greenhouse grown crops. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear at the start of the discussion. So this is only a discussion to consider the value of each of the merit analyses. It's not necessarily a re-ranking. We can simply leave it as it is based on the score, or we can discuss how these merit analyses can be considered depending upon comments from the group that are participating here today. So reminder to everybody, the goal isn't to reprioritize everything, but to capture any additional information that might support, or in reverse, not necessarily support the merit analyses that have been presented to us. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to contribute and ask questions or pose questions to the merit analysis leaders. regarding their projects. So you can see the two scores and where they ranked. It looks to me as though the leaf miners on greenhouse tomatoes and the western flower thrips on greenhouse grown ornamentals are the two that receive the highest merit analyses. And probably we would focus on those two, but I'm open to any discussion that people may have. So I think the first step would be to open the table, open the floor to any questions, comments, suggestions that anyone may have that they would like to contribute to this discussion about these three potential projects. So I'm open the floor to anybody who has comments.
Yes, Jim,
Iris.
we have a question from Iris Bitterlich. Go ahead, Iris.
Yeah, hi, Jim. I was just wondering, in terms of the merit analysis, if there are other suggestions for other potential solutions for some of these projects, if they get selected, is that a possibility? And also, as part of this process, are we just right now selecting the projects, and will there be ability to comment or provide feedback on some of the proposed solutions for the projects, or how does that work?
My understanding, and I might defer to Dirk for some of this as well, but my understanding is yes, certainly there are opportunity for other solutions to be proposed, but the best chance would be to ensure that that solution is indicated currently on the current version of the merit analysis. As far as what goes on in the future, it will depend what the ranking is here today, and then how it proceeds through the final analysis at the Global Minor Use Foundation meetings in October. So Dirk, is there anything you would like to add to that question?
Hi, Jim. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the participants, and especially to the team leaders and the merit analysis teams for these three projects. Of course, time was limited, and there's always the potential that new solutions could be identified. So if you do have new solutions, you could advance them now during the discussion, highlight them. Hey, there's going to be a new solution for project X. Or you could just communicate those to the merit analysis team leads as well, because we do want to try to have broad-based solutions wherever possible, ones that can be used over multiple jurisdictions. Thank you very much, Jim, and I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dirk. I just want to put in a couple of quick reminders as well, that if efficacy data is required for registration, then the project can still be considered. It doesn't only have to be a residue data project. So that's something to keep in mind. Secondly, as Kerry noted in his brief presentation, the Western Flower Thrips project on ornamentals did receive a B priority in the 2017 Global Minor Use Priority Setting exercise. I just wanted to make sure that is noted as well. Okay, are there any further questions, comments in support of?
Yes, Jim, we have a question from Lucy Namu from Kenya. Lucy, go ahead.
Thank you. A question, probably two questions. First question is, I see we have the priority, I think listed as number 2, the Western Flower Thrips, that's Frankinella on potted plants. And I know that in this region, Frankinella is also not only in potted plants, but also in our challenge in greenhouse plants. Is it possible to have a 2-in-1 combined project where you have for potted plants and you also have for the greenhouse plants? That is the flower plants. Second, I think is just in support of the tomato leaf miner. It has been a great challenge in the African region, especially in our region. So if we could also have not just the soft solutions, but if we could also look at solutions that could be used by farmers where they may not necessarily have access to tools that will provide them how to apply a microorganism as well as a pesticide, which means not necessarily only a very soft solution, but also one that can be a direct application solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy, for your question. I don't think I got the second part of the second question, but the answer to the first question is this is a greenhouse grown crops category. So my assumption would be that if you develop sufficient supporting data for greenhouse grown potted plants, that would cover greenhouse grown ornamentals in general. And I wasn't clear on the second question I couldn't hear much of it. So maybe you could repeat.
With regard to the second question, maybe I got it. I heard that for leaf miner on tomato, the request was to have a soft chemistry with a pesticide combination. Is that what my question was? Is there a possibility of just having a pesticide that is efficacious for TITA on the leaf miners on the tomato? Because it has been really a great challenge in this region.
Well, that's perhaps a question for somebody who has expertise in this area rather than I. But if anyone in the group here has any answers to that in terms of the efficacy of pest control products for this particular pest, I think that's what Lucy is asking. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Lucy, this is Michael Braverman, IR4. First of all, going back to the first part of your question in regard to the potted plants, I agree with Jim fully. And more specifically, in the situation for Kenya, I think a good example is, for example, in Canada, they grow mini roses in pots. And in Kenya, you have greenhouse roses as a cut flower within greenhouses, and certainly I think the efficacy data would be applicable. Then, in relation to your second question, I think the crux of your question is, can we consider combinations of biopesticides and conventional chemistries? And to that, the answer is yes as well. And in that case, if we're talking about mites, depending on what the chemistry is, we would be considering both efficacy and probably residues, because those are tomatoes as a tomato crop.
Yes.
So,
The suggestion was also made to Veronica, if you're there, do you have any comment on the efficacy of the products for this pest?
Veronica, you may be on mute.
No, the question is being translated in this moment.
Yes.
Great.
Gracias.
So if I may answer, this is Venkat Peribotla with IR4. I worked with my team lead, Veronica, and I can answer that question regarding to combination. There are, first of all, with all the solutions we identified, there are no residue studies that are needed for Tuta absoluta, number one. Just wanted to make that clear. Number two, so anything that we want, we are looking only for efficacy studies, and those efficacy studies are required potentially to support registration in those countries where we are trying to register the product. That is all we are asking, number one. Number two, in respect to combinations, chemistries that was asked, that question was posed from Kenya. Yeah, it could be. I mean, we have a very interesting mix of a pheromone slash a baculovirus slash a conventional biopesticide type of chemistry, a OMRI registered chemistry, a conventional chemistry. So these can be used in combinations. Yes, please. Did I answer the question, or is there anything else we could provide additional information?
Any other questions regarding this particular point?
So Jim, we have a question from Christy Palmer, US IR4 project.
Morning, Christy.
Hi, Jim. It wasn't exactly a question, but I wasn't sure whether team leads were able to jump into the discussion or not.
Of course.
But to answer Lucy's point, when Carrie and I were working with the team to pull the analysis together, we interpreted potted plants very, very broadly, because Western flower thrips goes to well over 200 ornamentals or environmental horticulture crops, in addition to food crops. So we definitely would support that, covering a wide range of flowering crops in greenhouses.
Okay, thank you.
And Jim, we would like to make sure that Veronica also has a chance to respond and speak to the question that Venkat answered. Veronica?
Yeah.
This is Adriana. Veronica said in the Spanish WhatsApp group, she said she asked Venkat to respond for her. So they were in the same group together. So that's fine.
Okay, gracias.
Jim, we have a question from, or a comment from Iris Bitterlich.
Yep.
Hi, Jim. Just sort of to move this along, I think, you know, russet mites on greenhouse tomatoes, I don't think we're quite there yet. I know Karen Tiff and me did quite a bit of work, and part of one of the biopesticide solutions, the no mite solution, there were questions there about the production of that particular biofungicide. Apparently it had been tried to be produced, and there were difficulties. I mean, I don't know how they grow up biopesticides, if they use big vats or what they're doing, but there were issues with that. And in addition, Karen Tift had reached out to BioWorks because part of the issue would be trying to find somebody who could bring the product, you know, work with the company in India to try to bring the product to North America or other jurisdictions in the world where, you know, that particular company might just be headquartered in India. So I don't think the russet mite project's quite there. A lot of the products that we did identify are already registered in Canada and the US, and it's a case of label expansions or getting the registrant to support their uses in greenhouse. So, and as a North American greenhouse tomato group, we were also interested in the Tuta absoluta project. Just as a point of information to people on the call, Tuta absoluta isn't actually in the US or Canada, and they are quarantine pests in those jurisdictions, but we would support work being done on the Tuta absoluta with the idea that we would like to get some of these tools registered preemptively, so to speak, in Canada and the US, so that if in the event we get the pest, that we'll have tools in our toolbox. I'd like to mention though that when this pest was first emerging, I did some work in Canada to try to get some label expansion so we would be ready if the pest did show up. So I just, as a point of information to the group, with the proposed solution of the spine-to-ram. I know Venkat has just indicated that no residue work is needed, but when I looked at expanding the label for that to cover off the tuta absoluta, that the use pattern was different from what was already on the label, and that higher rates were needed in order to get this pest on the label, and that I think there were some occupational exposure issues in terms of trying to expand the label. So it wasn't a straight path forward. And one of the concerns also with using a conventional type of pesticide is that concerns about resistance development. But one of the things I would like to put out to the group is that in Canada here, we've been looking at essential oils and fogging of essential oils to try to control pests. And the reason I bring that up is because tuta is a quarantine pest. Probably eradication would be needed, and we'd be looking, trying to find a fogging product as a solution. And in Canada, we might soon be losing our fogging products of the DDVP, which has already had its registration for greenhouse vegetables revoked by the PMRA, and we have concerns that NALED might follow soon. So I'm proposing that perhaps we could also consider the fogging of an essential oil such as rosemary or thyme, if that could be added to the list of potential solutions for the tuta absoluta. Anyway, I've been talking quite a bit here, so I'm going to stop here and see what the group thinks about this suggestion of dropping off the russet mites. I know there's been some chatter about combining the projects, but I think the pests are too different, and I think it would be too difficult to proceed as a combined project, so would support, throw our support behind the tomato leaf miner project.
Okay, thank you, Iris. So yes, I would tend to, based on the merit analysis scores, agree with that strategy. Basically, we're left with the two projects, both of which on the initially seem to only require efficacy data each. So efficacy would be required in some jurisdictions for registration for either one. Carrie or Christy, are you aware of any DFR or occupational exposure data requirements for your solutions for the Western flower thrips for use in greenhouse? Are there any DFR or occupational exposure data requirements that have not been covered yet?
Jim, this is Christy. I didn't see Carrie's name on the list of people attending. So I'm speaking just from a US perspective. Two of the solutions are biologically based, so I would not anticipate DFRs being required. The third solution is a relatively new chemistry, so DFR may be required, but that might also be covered by the registrant.
Okay.
The solution did drop off.
Okay, so we have about 10 minutes remaining in this segment. And
but Jim, may I say one more thing? I support the current rankings. So I support having the tomato ranking be first and the environmental horticulture project be second in this group.
And how does everybody else who has interest in these greenhouse crops feel about that?
This is Michael Braverman, IR4. I just wanted to follow up on a few comments in relation to Iris. First of all, thank you for your great comments. I would say I wasn't aware if you knew that I had already followed up with the folks in India, and they have tentatively expressed interest in registration with IR4 in the United States with our assistance. Of course, we don't have an official request at this point in time, but I could foresee that coming to fruition if there's interest in the industry. Second of all, I would not recommend removing the tomato mite from the list. Nothing is ever really removed unless it's really unless it's found out that the pest is not really a problem or the crop is not really a greenhouse crop. And this ranking process is really more of a guideline than anything else. So in the end, I want to stress that there are no winners and losers. There's only relative rankings, and these relative rankings give us indications of the relative importance of one priority versus the other. But that does not mean that we will only put funds in priority number one. It's more like, do we really have a very robust solution? And that's where we look at making decisions within a priority. So we may look at one or more decisions on priority one, and if none of the solutions pan out, or there are really a lot of really good solutions, we decide which ones might be the best one, and then we can still potentially fund number two or number three. So don't have the feeling that because you're ranking 1, 2, or 3 that it either guarantees anything or leaves you out.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, I was only going to suggest that the tomato mites be ranked 3 based on the comments and the consensus so far in the room. We have a little bit of time left. I see there's still a question or two. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more.
Yes, we have a question from Iris Bitterlich. Iris, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Jim. I was just going to say, based on what Michael had said, that it wasn't that I wanted to drop tomatoes off, but just in terms of I'm agreeing with the group on the rankings. It's fine to leave it there, especially, Michael, if there's an opportunity to bring the biomite to a wider world market. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any final comments that anyone would like to point out for the greenhouse grown commodities? At the moment, we have a proposal that the current ranking of tuta absoluta on greenhouse grown tomatoes is 1. Western flower thrips on ornamentals greenhouse grown is 2. And mites on greenhouse grown tomatoes is 3. Any final comments? Hearing nothing. Any final questions? I'd like to thank all of the participants so far in today's session, and enjoy the rest of the discussion.
Jim, it looks like we have one additional question from Iris Bitterlich.
Yeah, just before the greenhouse group breaks away, I want to mention that there's going to be a virtual free workshop in regards to the tomato brown rugose fruit virus. This is a virus that I think is worldwide, and everybody might have especially in greenhouse tomatoes, might have an interest in finding out about, or you're probably already aware of. So I just wanted to let the group know I'm going to be posting information about the free virtual workshop into the chat box, and there's links there to the agenda and registration.
Okay, thank you. Gracias, everybody.
Okay. All right. Well, kudos to the work that Jim has done, Michael's done, all the merit analysis leaders, and you, of course, to come up with the rankings there. So very much appreciated. I have 22 minutes after the hour. We are scheduled for a 5-minute break. So let's be back at 20, let's say 28 minutes past the hour. I believe our friends at Fountainworks will put a screen timer on so you know when to be back. I think we just have to, yep, there you go. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and click start and be back in 5 minutes.